Did you know that 90% of the world's millionaires invest in real estate? Well, I'm Angel with the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks, and I'm here to help you if you want to go for your piece of that pie. Hey guys, it's Angel from the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks, and today we have Cindy Byler with us. And she has an amazing story. She is a military wife, so she's got some crazy that has happened and gone on, and it put her on her path. She is a fellow music teacher, so she's done the music teaching thing, lots of fun. One of the things you might have noticed on the pic was that she had a flute. So this is a flautist and music teacher. So one of the things that is, well, one of my goals is to make sure that I can help my fellow educators find some wiggle room. And this is a fellow educator who has now moved into the real estate frontier as a full-time real estate professional. Just a little bit about her. She married her high school sweetheart. So I guess y'all were both in New York then?
Yeah, we're both from upstate New York. I've known him since I was 14, like a long time.
That's super cute. I make that point because it's going to be interesting here in a second, because she's no longer in New York. She's now in Central Texas and still managing all of the properties that they bought in New York.
Yeah.
So they're still taking care of all of those properties, even though, what'd you say it was, 1,600 miles away?
Yeah, well, we acquired them while we were here in Texas too, so.
That's just wild to me. Are y'all intending to go back?
I don't think so.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. We have a rental that's like 4 hours away, and that's hard enough. I can't imagine across the country.
I mean, there's not too much difference between a property being 4 hours away and then a property being 1,600 miles away. I mean, at the end of the day, you have boots on ground. You probably have 2 or 3 maintenance guys in queue should anything happen. Do you have a property manager there?
Yeah, we have a property manager.
Yeah, it's not all that different.
Maybe it just feels different because, like, I see the map in my head and I'm like, ours is just a couple of inches to the left, and yours is like, that's like 12 inches away.
Right.
Like in the upper right corner. So that's a longer, much longer distance to me.
It is. I think longest, it's about a 4-hour like plane ride if I get a really good one. But I think long distance investing scares a lot of people. We didn't really have too much of an option. I mean, at the end of the day, being a long distance investor was going to be inevitable. So we just kind of bit the bullet and went with it from the beginning.
Wow.
So
I guess kind of get the shock over with.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, our very first, like, technically we've been landlords for over 5 years now. We had purchased a property as a personal residence, and then the military gave us orders to go to Texas, and earlier than we had anticipated. And we're like, well, we just bought this property a year and a half ago, and we can't even afford to cover the closing costs right now. Like, that's not going to work. So in a way, like many other military members, we were sort of, our hand was forced to become landlords. And so right away I was like, well, I'm not taking any tenants to court if anything happens. Like, that legal jargon, I don't have time to figure this out. So we went ahead and we interviewed and hired a property manager. Fortunately, they didn't take first month's rent like some markets do. It was just 10% flat. So that helped a lot. And it worked. I mean, we were just one repair away from like not making anything that month, but at the end of the day, our mortgage was paid. We were in Texas and then Hawaii, and it's like, okay, well, they give us this nice long sheet of paper. We hand it to our CPA at the end of the year. It's like, we don't even have to do anything except for maybe approve occasional maintenance requests. So that experience as a long distance landlord, I wouldn't call myself an investor at that point, but as a landlord, like, oh, this can happen if you have the right people on your team doing everything that needs to be done. So
wow. Yeah, I guess it does sound like it's like, whether it's 4 hours or 1,600 miles, it's still kind of the same setup.
Well, it's kind of interesting because you know, we're going to be heading to San Antonio and we'll be purchasing a property there that we will be living in. So the idea is a duplex to a quad. And we're trying to decide, do we want to self-manage it, or do we want to just play the role of just being another tenant? Because if we take the role as the actual manager, then we're going to have our door knocked on at all days of, you know, all times of the day,
all
you
hours of the
know.
day.
Yeah, you know, the 3 T's, we don't want that. So I'm a bad liar. I don't know if I could pull that off, but to a certain degree, it's convenient to not have that as a problem. Even though I'm like going to be literally right next door, it's almost worth the 10% to me. So
Yeah, well, and I don't know. We've thought about that too, and we have a couple of houses here in the town we live in, and a friend of mine was called by the manager to do the plumbing work. And I almost told my friend, "Hey, you know you were working in my house." And I didn't.
look at you
Because
go.
I didn't want to get myself in a situation where later on he would bypass the manager if there was something going on that was repairing.
Yep.
Because the reason I have a manager is because I don't want those phone calls.
Absolutely. And with our very first investment property, I made that mistake. It was almost a necessary mistake because the first property manager we had, he proved to be unreliable. And I am very big on, if something is wrong with the property, especially if water is involved, it needs to be fixed ASAP. And because he wasn't reliable, I gave the tenants my phone number when I saw them and I was in town. I was like, look, if he isn't available, feel free to like get a hold of me. And I got a lot of phone calls, and I'm telling you, like one time we were on vacation, it was like at 6 a.m. and the shower is just from upstairs is like raining into the downstairs living room. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is real hard wood that's in these apartments, not because we were going fancy, but because they were there, and it was just as expensive to just refinish them, and they look really nice. So she's having a panic attack, the tenant. She's a great tenant. And now 6 a.m. on vacation, I'm having a panic attack because where's my property manager? Not to mention I can't really do anything from Texas. So that was hard. And then eventually we got a new property manager who had systems in place. And if they didn't, especially when you're in transition, you're not always going to like what you see or what you hear. There were times they would call me and try to go around the property manager. And I was like, look, you know, you need to get back to them because there's not a lot I can do from here anyway. So.
Yeah, that would be hard. We didn't have like an unreliable property manager, but we had one that wasn't filling the property the way we thought that it should be filled, like as quickly, and there was just some other weird stuff going on. She wasn't communicating well with us. Things were getting taken care of, but there wasn't a lot of communication. Yeah. And so that was, I mean, we had that, you know, you put things in place, like if it's under $200, just fix it. Don't call me, right. Just fix it.
Right.
And so we had those things in place, but things were getting fixed that were beyond the limit, and it was putting us in a bind. And it was our first rent house. We had no clue. Yeah. And then there was a tenant that was there for it was our very first tenant, there for a month, maybe 2. I think it was a month. And then she left all of her stuff behind. So we had to pay the property manager, and we had to pay to have everything moved out. And then we had to pay again when the next person came in, and it was just a nightmare. And the person that we have managing now has been managing it for, oh goodness, 10 years, 11 years.
Oh, nice. It's so refreshing when you find that fit, you know. It's like, oh, okay, I can breathe now. And I believe we do have our fit. My property manager has been managing for about a year now, and he also oversees our renovations, which are very extensive. So he's kind of a one-stop shop, and I'm hoping and praying like it continues to work out, because it's almost like a partnership, you know. Like he's doing renovations at pretty much wholesale price, because he knows at the end of the day they're going to be able to manage that property as well. They're helping us, grow. And then that'll be more passive income for them, essentially, with occasional like tenant phone calls that I never want to take anyway. So
no, that's awesome though. So all of your properties then are in the same town?
pretty much 3 out of the 4 are in the same town. And then the 4th property is about maybe a half hour away.
Oh, so he'll still manage all of them?
So I technically self-manage the single family home, but it is occupied by a friend of the family. So I trust her. Yeah, it's not incredibly personal, but at the same time, like, here's my bank account number, go make the deposit. It kind of dips my toes into it too. Should I decide to not have a property manager at some point? I think a lot of times, some people feel like it's not easy to justify the 10%, especially if you're in a market where you're hardly getting cash flow for your deal, right? Some markets that count on appreciation, which I don't think is the best way to do it, but it is what it is. So in my market, like the margins are so big that like I can easily justify it. Like, yes, please, all day, every day, let's go. So, and I'm very fortunate in that manner.
Yeah. Well, like we made the decision because my grandparents self-managed. They had a small little trailer park and a little quad and a couple of single family homes. And I mean, my grandfather was still managing it into his 70s. And I was like, this is crazy, Grandpa. You got to get yourself a manager. We have a property manager. And so I found him a property manager back home.
Nice.
He was like, this is the best thing ever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
And
don't you wish you did this in your 50s?
Him and my grandmother, before she passed, they would drive from rental to rental to go pick up rent. And it was like their little thing, I guess. I don't know, but it was one of the things that turned me off to self-managing.
Yeah, I bet. At least I guess you get monthly inspections that way.
Well, my grandma was kind of, she would just show up at her apartments and go check them, which I don't know that you're necessarily supposed to do that. But,
it's whatever is put in the lease. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea, but yeah, it was kind of funny.
Gotcha.
But no, they would do that, and then they had like efficiency apartments, and so they had some C properties that they would work with their tenants on. You could pay the rent twice a month, or splitting it, and so they worked with tenants like on a one-on-one basis, and they were just really, really involved with it. Mm-hmm. And I knew that was not the direction I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And then Jason, my husband, his family also has rentals, and they have property managers, and he was like, no, we're getting a property manager.
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah,
that's the way to go.
Crazy stuff. So how long has your husband been in the military?
So Jonas has been in the military for 8.5 years. I had to think about that. Yeah, 8.5 years. We have 11.5 years to go. That I can rattle off. So the difference, 20 minus 11.5 is 8.5.
He's gonna go the whole time.
Yeah, more than likely. We were a little bit back and forth recently. He was trying to get into school, and the schooling would add on additional time in service as a payment for going through school. So our decision, like, he has a dream of opening up his own private practice one day, and I have a master's in health administration to kind of support that dream should it come up. And so the idea was, if he didn't get in, he was going to finish, I think, his 2.5 years or whatever was left, and then maybe we'd get out. Especially as a physician assistant, which is his job, he'd be fine on the outside, right? The thing that keeps us in there are the benefits, like health care. That's all, health care. But if he got into school, by the time he did his additional time, he would be up to like 15 years out of the 20. At that point, you might as well do an extra 5 for healthcare for life, and then also a pension. So at this point, it looks as though we're going career. So, or my husband, I don't want to tell too much of his story. He's very private. I do sometimes in the mastermind, but at the end of the day, like, he was the first to go to college. initially he was going to go into the Navy. He was enlisted to go into the Navy because he couldn't justify going into a bunch of debt. His family already made a bunch of sacrifices for him to even go to high school. So when he got awarded the Army ROTC scholarship, he's like, wow, I can now pursue my dream of becoming a doctor. I can do this. I can feel good about it. So he went to school. He got like a pre-med bio degree, pre-med basically. And then the Army owned him for 4 years. So he commissioned as an officer in 2012, and they commissioned him as a logistics officer. And yeah, right? You take the guy with a pre-med, that means you're in charge of like supplies.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with his background. I always joked, I'm like, so you gave the guy with the pre-med bio degree, a minor in chemistry, the job of handing out toilet paper? I was like, leave it to the Army. But
wow.
God bless my husband. He did his job well. There were moments where he was sour about it because he's like, this is not what I wanted to do with my life. But he stuck it out for 3.5 years until, thank God, the Army opened up some doors for him, and he was able to attend it's called IPAP for short. It's Inner Service Physician Assistant Program. And basically he goes to school while he's serving in the military. They pay for the schooling and they pay his salary. The first half of it was in San Antonio. And then the second half we could go to a lot of different places, but we were fortunate enough to go to Hawaii. So that was fun. Wow. So he's been practicing a little over 2 years now. He'll be going to pursue his doctorates, physician assistant studies, general surgery, which I'm super proud of him for. He was one of 3 soldiers to be picked for the program. And it's really what his heart was after. So excited for him.
And it's at a super good school.
Yeah. Baylor.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm a Baylor alum too, so that's why I'm like, and it's at a super good school.
I know. Yeah. I can back the Bears. I'm not like a huge school mascot, like support. I don't know. It's just, I should have been, like, I did 6 too many years of cheerleading, but.
So you said something a little bit ago. You said, if he wants to have a practice, and I started thinking, you've actually replaced your income with your rentals, haven't you? Yes.
As of like a month ago, we officially hit that threshold. So to kind of back up, my husband, like, we're high school sweethearts. We got married like before I even graduated college, technically, because he was supposed to deploy. I'm like, we have dated for 4 years now, because we started when I was 17. You don't want to get married too young. I was like, we dated for 4 years now. I don't want to have to wait for you to deploy a year from now when we're supposed to get married. And then when you come back, so we're talking 2 years. I was like, I'm not about to wait 2 years. So we dated for 4 years and then had a 5-month engagement. I planned our wedding while I was still in college. My GPA suffered a little bit, but not too much. And the first 10 months of our marriage, we did not live together. I finished school up in New York. He was down in Kansas. It's just the life. And it would have been even longer had I not miraculously graduated college early. I graduated a semester early, which is unheard of for music majors. And then I landed a job while he was off at a training, which was really exciting. And then he came back, hey, honey, we're probably going to deploy. Excuse me? I'm not stuck in.
I just got a job.
I just got a job in Kansas. All my family is up in New York. I've got nobody. I've been here for a month, and you left 3 days for training after I got here. And now you're like going to deploy at me. So yeah, the emotions of the lifestyle started like right away. Thankfully that mission never went through, so he didn't deploy. And I did teach my first year. We got pregnant with my first child, like almost immediately at the beginning of the school year. We weren't exactly planning on it. I remember crying. I was 22 and 23 when we finally had her. But so yeah, taught for a year, but then my husband got into PA school. So I was initially like, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to teach because I'm an independent woman and we've done this long distance thing. And then I was like, wait, not only an independent woman, but I'm also a mom now with a baby who has a dad who happens to be my husband. And so like, I'm going through this slowing down, and, you know, life changes when you have children. And so I came to the realization, you know, one day they're not going to have a choice in the matter to be able to spend time together. And it would be very selfish of me to take 6 months of her life from him in the name of holding down my career, because this is what I worked hard for. So I decided to, you know, put my family first, and I went and had a really tough conversation with my superintendent and principal. It was kind of like a really small school. So, and he understood. However, this was like 2 weeks before school was starting, and they're a tiny school and it's in Kansas, and it's kind of hard to find a teacher, let alone a music teacher. So he's like, look, I respect your decision, but this is such late notice. I have to hold on to your teaching license, and you won't be able to teach for the next year. And initially I was like, well, that's fine. I didn't plan on teaching anyway. Like, we're moving and I just had a baby. But when reality set in, I was like, man, that makes me feel like an irresponsible person.
And it stays on your certificate. Like, it doesn't fall off. It's always there, even when you are able to teach again.
Really? Well, it's a good thing I'm certified in 3 different states. Because that's military life too. So I grew bitter about that. I really did. I mean, I was doing what I felt was right. Putting my career on hold, being there for my children, or my child at the time, supporting my husband through this very difficult school. It's like basically going to med school in half the time, and moving 3 times in 3 years. That's what followed. I mean, during that time, I'm not a complacent person. Like, I may not have been working and I was a stay-at-home mom, but I also like got my master's during that time because I had to do something for me. And I got it in health administration as like a plan B, because being a music teacher and having to move every 2 years, it doesn't flow.
Well, it's hard to build your program when.
It's hard to build your program. It's hard because the military could have us move in November, and nobody's going to hire me in November. That's mid-school year. So there's timing involved too. Or it could be like last minute orders and we didn't even know we were moving. That very much happens too. There was a time my husband was called in on a Thursday and said, you're going to Africa on Tuesday. Whoa. Like, yeah, that was crazy. I was like, I knew this stuff could happen, but 4-day notice? Like, come on. But it's the lifestyle.